So good morning, everyone. Good morning again. Thank you for viewing. Thank you for joining us on this 8th episode of Health and Family Life Education, the Parenting Edition. We are happy that you are joining with us, and we hope that you will tell your friends and other people to join in and like, share, and comment this presentation. So joining us again is Alicia Hoyt, clinical psychologist, master's level. And we are happy that you're joining us, Alicia, again. Today we are going to be talking about adolescence, an interesting time in a person's life. So we look forward to this half an hour discussion. You know, we always don't have enough time.
Exactly.
So, we're going to jump right in. How are you doing today, Alicia?
I am good, blessed, and happy to be here, Trish.
Good, good, good. So, friends, you know, we have an image on the screen, and we're talking about adolescence, where there's a need for some anchoring. And this art, I want to give credit where credit is due. This art is by James Brunt. We would have used some of his art before. And this again, James Brunt, an artist who uses natural objects to create. And I thought that this was so beautiful in terms of the discussion we're going to have on adolescence. And, you know, there's that anchor, the roots, and coming out of the roots, you know, there are different pebbles, there are different stones, and there's a creative way about it. So it's not scattered. There's creativity in it. And, you know, as parents, we are called to anchor our children in God and, you know, anchor them as they discover, as they create, as they move out of our, they move in and out of our spaces. So this really captures for me what the period of adolescence is about. Let's say you want to share anything there?
Well, I'm looking at it and I'm like trying to see it from two perspectives. I could see how someone could look at this and it could almost be anxiety provoking in terms of, okay, what's going on there? Where is this going? Why aren't the lines perfectly straight? What's this about? And you could really be uncomfortable with not knowing what's happening next in this image or why this image is the way it is. And that's how our adolescents can make us feel. We feel like we're losing control. We're not sure what's happening with them. But on the other hand, depending on the place you're in, you can appreciate simply the beauty of what is in this image in the moment. The fact that there's some order, maybe it wasn't the way you would think it should be, but there's some order and there is beauty in it. And if we could wait in the moment, we could enjoy the beauty. And that's where we're wanting to get to with our children, that we can enjoy the journey with them, guide them, encourage them. We don't know everything about what comes next, but we're with them on the journey, and that's what's important. And we are enjoying the moments with them.
Good. I'm glad that you said, you know, we are with them on this journey and we are enjoying the moments, you know, and a lot of times the moments could be a bit crazy, but it's about, you know, enjoying those moments. So, you know, this, you know, as we look at this image, let's just be mindful of the beauty of this time as we continue. So maybe you can stop sharing now as we continue our discussion on the adolescence. So Alicia, tell us a little bit about this adolescent phase. You know, what's happening here? What's the age group? What's the purpose of it? Tell us a little bit about this time.
Remember adolescence, which might catch some people by surprise because we think of teenager and the teens, and that's a narrow group. Adolescence can run from 9 or 10 all the way up to 25 when the forebrain is more fully developed. Yeah. So we're talking about 9 or 10 all the way to 25. For our purposes in this chapter, the last couple of sessions, we've been talking about 11 to 14, what we would call early adolescence. And now we're talking about what we call the vocational years, the 15 to 19. And remember, this is a time when the secondary sexual characteristics come into play. And that's what we most know. We know that that's what we call puberty, where the bodies begin to change. They are able to, you see the sexual, the differences in their bodies and the way they think. But a lot is happening cognitively too. Our children are beginning to think about things more abstractly. Their cognitive processes are growing. They're able to think about more complex thoughts. They're able to think about things beyond themselves, global ideas like justice and politics and so on. And so they're seeing the world in a whole new way. And out of that growth in their neurological functioning comes this increased concern with identity and purpose. Who am I in this bigger picture? Yeah. And so they're more capable of moral thinking. They tend to be a little idealistic and black and white. That's where half the fights be, because they call us hypocrites very easily, and they call people out on what's going on. They can sometimes feel a little harsh and judgmental, but it's because they're able to think about things more without the life experience. Yeah. And so, and as they're coming into figuring out who am I apart from these people who have raised me and formed me and shaped me, we've come to expect rebellion. We've come to expect, fight. And it doesn't have to be that way. They do go through this process. The term is individuation, where they're figuring out who am I apart from the family and the parents and the values I've been taught. And what we want for our children is that they come to understand and own their own values and beliefs, hopefully, in line with what we've shared with them and what we've tried to show them. But they do go through that process, maybe of rejecting or wanting to reject, or at very least questioning what we've been teaching them, and figuring out for themselves what they believe. The world may tell us that, we have to step back and let them figure it out for themselves, and we don't have a say and we shouldn't keep them back. But that's not entirely true. We talked about, Trish, when you're playing tag or hide and seek, you're out there and you're running and you're hiding, but there's a home base. There's a place you run to where you're safe. That's who we're supposed to be as parents at this point in the game. We're supposed to be the home base, the secure base, the anchor, where they're out there battling, figuring things out, dealing with their friends, dealing with the messages of the world, but they come back home. And at home, they can question and explore and tell us what's been going on with them, and we can listen and support and guide. I know I went a little long there, but it's adolescence we're talking about.
No, that, you said a lot of things that I can, I think I can identify with, in terms of what I'm seeing. You talked about thinking abstractly in a complex kind of way, able to, that area about justice and politics. I mean, globally, we are seeing persons at the forefront of certainly justice issues and the environment, climate change.
It's young people.
It's young people, because they're seeing the world in a whole new way. Yes. And one person comes to my mind who works for the Archdiocese, he says, we're the young people. We need to include young people in what we're doing. You talked about discovering a little more now, their identity and their purpose. What am I called to do? What are the causes that I need to fight for, and make a change? And something that really struck me that you said, they see the world in this kind of black and white, idealistic kind of way, and can think adults are hypocrites, because they're only talking, they're not really walking the talk. What was it? And become judgmental. They can become judgmental without the life experience. Yes. And I thought, that is very, very important, and become harsh and judgmental without the life experience. And harshness, at times we need to become, passionate about what we think, yes. But sometimes we need to reflect on, why this might be happening. Recently, a parent was telling me that, her daughter came to her and was saying about particular things, and was saying to her, well, that is it. And then she put something else in the mix, well, maybe this person has a mental health disorder, and maybe that could be the reason why they're behaving that way. But, the daughter was adamant, it was because of this. This is why the person is behaving that way. Yeah. And the daughter only mellowed after they began to have a little more conversation, when there was a little greater understanding and empathy, that the daughter came around to, began to see it in a different light. I don't know if she came around, but she began to see things in a different light during this adolescent time. I can see you want to share something there.
That's a bad habit. I always look like I'm about to talk. No, but right on track with what you're saying. It reminds me two things I have circled here in terms of the posture of the parent at this point in time. is to ask more than tell. I would have said that before, right?
Curiosity.
Ask more than tell. And so that's what you said. The parent proposed another possibility, another option, another way of looking at the situation. And then the child could take that in, because now we're able to handle more complex, abstract thought. The child can take that in. But when we're fighting with them, they're going to resist and insist on their way of seeing things, and we end up in a little battle. But if I could ask more than lecture, ask more than tell, if I can be curious too, again, that comes to the asking. How come you see it that way? What happened? Do you think there's another possibility? All that sets the ground for helping this child begin to figure out what they believe, what they think, and who they are.
I'm glad that you shared that as well, that instead of that fighting,
it doesn't have to be,
it doesn't have to be a constant fight. And I think, as parents of adolescents, sometimes people ask you questions, how it going? And they ask you that, but like, oh God, I'm going to pray for you. Well, I want you to pray for me. But things going okay sometimes a little rocky. Sometimes I can't take the questioning, the constant questioning, but it brings me back to my own days, my own times, during adolescence, because that's the time of the island crashers event in Tobago.
Oh Lord.
Where a lot of things happen there. That's the time of graduation. Confirmation. It's a time of a lot of big things happening, and a lot of questions. Do I have to go to church? Do I have to do this? Why do I have to listen to you? I don't want to go to church at that time. I want to go a different time. So we used to go whatever time. I want to go at a different time. I don't want to go, period. This God who you talk about, mommy and daddy,
I don't see him. Yes.
I don't see him. And what happened in the world doesn't tell me that he's alive and well. So this is the kind of questioning time for adolescents, but it's a time of discovery, discovering your call, that vocation, your calling in life. What do you have to say about that? I'm not hearing you, Alicia.
Hear me now?
I'm hearing you now, yes.
Okay, yeah, the rain came on, so I wanted to make sure I would be heard properly. But if you're hearing me, okay, we'll work with that. Yeah. The last chapter talked about, the key thing that we're doing, that we need to do with our adolescents is live our faith. We ourselves have to demonstrate our awareness of who God is in our lives, our awareness of being loved by him. And when we live our faith joyfully, they will see that in us. Yeah. What we also need to be able to do, again, is engage them. Step back a little and give them room to question and to ask. Engage them in conversation. Share what the church teaches. Explore issues with them. Share what you believe and what you know to be true and what we're called to do. If they want to go to a different mass, they can go to a different mass. We want to encourage that they go to mass, So give some more choice, limited choices that we can work with, so that they have room to explore, to consider, but we don't let them go. We do one of two things sometimes in our society. We hold them down and we say, well, I is the man in the house, I is the woman in the house, you're doing as I say. Or we figure they get big now, we can't tell them what to do, so we let them go. But what we're called to do is continue to guide, engage and guide.
And, when you say engage and guide, it's like holding the tension. Life is, we have to hold that tension. Let it go. It goes the next way, And
that's what's exhausting.
It is exhausted. I remember when I was, in that age group, when I had just finished school, I used to like to sleep. I still do. And mommy said, you see, you're not sleeping whole day in this house, You going and learn a skill. And I was like, I'm tired. I study so much. I want to sleep. And I getting up 10 o'clock and so on. And she said, I am signing you up for typing. Whether you like it or not, you're going to learn to type on a typewriter. That's computer, right? And I was so mad with her. She said, I'll give you one. You could choose the time that you want to go to the typing class. It's between 9 and 4. You choose the time, but you're going to the class whether you like it or not. And I chose the time and I went to the class. And, later on in life, and even now, I'm very grateful that mommy stood her ground and said, I'm not staying home whole day and sleeping in that room in my nightie whole day. You have to get up and be productive and get out there and learn a skill. So, it was during that time, I can share many more examples, but that really stands out to me. What you wanted to share, I see you smiling.
It's curious. Remember, we were laughing and we had the exact same experience. My father did the same thing to me at 14. I went to learn to type. I'm like, why? And then at 17, I'm going to learn to drive and waking me up and I'm, taking driving lessons, sleepy. So sometimes, we talked about some things being non-negotiable, some things being negotiable. And we have to set that up with our teens, depending on the stage they're at and so on. Some things we're going to push you on, even though you're not feeling it, really. We're going to encourage you strongly. And some things we could discuss about what you do and when and how. But and remember, the goal around now is helping them develop their sense of identity. And we can ask some key questions around that. I know you're watching the time and we enjoying our conversation. But if we can pull up some of the questions that we could be asking our children to help them develop that sense of who they are. So some of the developmental tasks, like we said, is helping them develop that sense of identity. And on the left there, we see about 4 questions that we could be asking our children. And again, because we're getting into discussing their sexual identity and who they are sexually, this is not one-off conversation, but at different points in their journey through their adolescence, we may be asking, what qualities do you want to be known for at the end of your life or later in life? How do you want to be known? And we really need to get our kids start thinking about that. Do you want to be known as caring or strong or ambitious or what do you want to be known as? And what decisions do you have to make on a daily basis in order to increase the chance that you'll become known as that when you mature? And so when they're there and they're telling you about all the bacchanal and conflict with the girls in the class, or when they're telling you about how them and the boys was laughing at somebody or something went on in school, you ask them, how do you want to be remembered out of these situations? Who did you want to be in that situation? And they reflect for a minute. What do you have to decide to do day by day? Do you want to be remembered as the person who was laughing at somebody who was down? Do you want to be known as the tease or whatever it is? How do you want to be remembered? And then as time goes on and you're having these conversations at different points, the third question, what kind of work, what kind of volunteer role, what kind of activity, what kind of career do you think would be important opportunities for you to develop those qualities or beliefs or values that you say you want? So we're helping our children think about and develop an identity statement. Who do I want to be in the world? And maybe we've kept our children as children too long, where we do for them and we try to think for them, rather than encouraging them to start to think about this. And 15 isn't too young. Start to think about, how do you want to be in the world? This is how you are now, but how do you want to be? And then 4 is, what kind of people do you need in your life to encourage you to be that kind of person, to encourage those qualities and those beliefs? What kind of friendships support you in becoming the person you want to be? And what kind of friendships keep you back or discourage you? And then what do you need to do? And so as they're sharing with you, we talked about this time, we have to be available to listen and hear, not freak out when they tell us some of the things that are going on in school, but to be available to hear. And as we're hearing, we're asking questions. And asking questions keeps us from lecturing. Yeah? Asking questions puts the thought in their mind. So when they step away from you, they're thinking about, is that what I want to be? Is that how I want to be seen? Is this really important to me? Again, I'm going on long, but this is big.
No, this is important.
Yeah.
I think something that you shared there, and those are questions. We're using the book Beyond the Birds and the Bees. This is our guide that we use in this discussion. So copies are available, so you can contact us.
Mm-hmm.
Something that you shared there, we are keeping our children as children, meaning, we treated them like babies for too long.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing for them and thinking for them. We're prolonging that phase.
Childhood, yeah.
And that was one of the things that, I hear many parents saying, well, he can't do that, she can't do that, I have to do it for them. Have you asked them to think about it? even if they have to Google and so on, but have you asked them if they could do it?
Yeah.
How much where they have to study, really? Don't they eat?
Yeah.
And I wash their clothes, but they can't afford it for them because they have to study. Studying is a big thing in that age group. But there are other things that they can do. They can clean the bathroom. They can fold their clothes. They can do things. Help out around the house. So, in terms of the qualities do you want to be known for at the end of your lives? Maybe these are questions too as parents we can continuously be asking ourselves.
Yes.
These could be conversation questions at home. What qualities you want? Quick care in general. You're quarreling all the time. You want to be a quarrelsome. When you're old age, you're gonna be quarrelsome. So the qualities are important, and when we as parents are able to model some of those qualities, the patience, the saying that you're sorry when things don't go the way that you want, some things that we can also model for our children, that they're more likely to adapt. Any questions here or anything that
No, you're right. We spoke about the work that we're guiding our children to do. We need to do it ourselves. And for some of us, obviously our parents didn't have this book, so some of us haven't done this work ourselves. And again, the society is giving the message that parents are less and less relevant at this time in the child's life, and that is simply not true. They are watching us more than we realize. They are watching us more than we understand. They're looking at our relationships, our marriage, or our relationships with our significant other. How do we conduct ourselves? What values do we portray in our relationships? That's why they come at us so hard and call us hypocrites sometimes, because they need us to be a good role model. And it hurts when we're not. Yeah. And so we may not be telling them what to do all the time and making all the decisions for them. But when we live our best life, or at least we're trying, they're seeing that. And when we help them answer these questions, then they can, that second task on there of developing an identity statement, then they can measure all their relationships against the standard that they've set for themselves. Is this boy or is this gang of friends in keeping with who I say I want to be and become? If I say that truth is important to me and being honest is important to me, is hanging out with a bunch of people who are encouraging me to deceive my parents or to hide things, helping me be who I want to be? And so when we ask these questions of them, they then have a gauge or a measure. And when we're a safe place where they can come and bounce their thoughts and bounce their experiences, we can keep asking questions for them to work on. So we don't have to be telling or lecturing or reminding or threatening. We've created a space where they can work it out as they go back out into the world. Much like those seeds at the base of the tree, they can come in, kind of figure things out a little bit with our support, and go back out and develop that sense of identity.
That reminds me, of an experience I had, the piercing of the ears is something that is a constant conversation in my home. At what age can I pierce my ears? At what age can I pierce my ears? And I never, I try not to shut it down. I try to continue, what it is about piercing your ears or thinking about getting a tattoo. What is that? What is that fascination? Tell me about that. And why is that so important to you? At this time in your life, and then he may say, well, my friends, or I see this one do it, some footballer or somebody else, and you kind of start just to ask those questions. What is that saying about who you are? Does that change who you are, the essence, your identity? Does that change who you are? And I find becoming curious as a parent, as frightening at times it may be to ask that other question.
Very frightening, yes.
I find it's needed because it creates, it brings it out into the open, and it creates an atmosphere to have conversation, the difficult ones. Now, I know what time is approaching. The end time is approaching, but maybe you talked about helping teens develop an identity statement and what you want to become. And you talked about the role, the role of parents modeling behaviors in the home whether it be whether you're married or single, separated, divorced, or whatever your situation may be, but modeling that kind of behavior in the home. Would you like to elaborate a little bit more there?
So I've turned the page. So we're kind of looking at the second point, and then task 3, we're going to kind of glance on that. And you see, what we're called to be as parents really isn't extra, but it's to our best benefit anyway. We ought to be trying to live according to the gospel, to live according to what we know to be right and good and true. And as I'm doing my own journey and my own work, my child is watching me. So it takes some pressure off that I'm not expected to be perfect. And I'm not expected to know everything and have all the answers to tell them. But I can be honest about my journey too. I'm learning about my faith. I'm trying to figure out who I am. Maybe I've gone into therapy. Maybe we're in couples therapy. We're trying to work it out. And my child will see my honest effort at being my best self. Yeah. That second task about developing an identity statement also talks about something that I did growing up, or that my mother guided us to do. Make a wish list based on who I want to be in the relationships, as far as I understand. Let's make a wish list of the characteristics we want to see in our partner. Yeah. I want this kind of person in my life to help me be my best self. And then when we get, because we're in the older adolescence here, when I'm getting into relationships, I can assess my relationships based on this wish list that I've created, and be able to assess people and circumstances as to, are they helping me be my best? Are they helping me be who God has called me to be? And that's a standard. And then they're looking at my life as I try to work those things out too.
Right. What jumps out at me, they're not expected to be perfect. We are not perfect. All of us are trying to maneuver life with God's grace. But, it's about making the journey and being as human as we can with our children as we seek to guide them. Sometimes we may not know, we might be clueless, but it's never too late for us to, Google is here. There are lots of books, there are a lot of resources that we have available at the Family Life Commission that we can make available to you to, continue building the relationship. I think this time of a young person's life is about really that building that, strengthening that relationship. We started to build it already, but it's about, making it deeper and stronger. Is that what I'm hearing you saying, Alicia?
Can you hear me okay?
I'm hearing you, yes.
Yeah, so I keep putting on the headphones because the rain is falling. There's a 3-step, the 3 E's that Dr. Justin Coulson talks about. He's a Christian parenting expert. The explain, oh good Lord, explain, explore, and empower. And the first 2 E's talk about dialogue. So explain means I come to my child and I say, here's what I'm seeing in you, and here's what I'm concerned about. I've seen this behavior, you've been doing this, and I'm concerned about what does that mean? And that leads into the explore, where I listen to how my child is seeing the world, how my child sees the situation, why they did what they did. And maybe empower is about coming up with solutions together. And so that's how we're building the relationship. I, as the parent, really need to just make the time. I need to come, I need to do my self-care so that when I come to this child, I am not just firing off instructions or orders or lecturing or threatening because I'm so stressed and anxious and worried about them, or just blowing them off because I have no energy left to deal with them. I take care of me, and then I can be present to my child to explain what I'm seeing, what I'm concerned about, explore how they understand the issue and why they did what they did, and empower means I sit with them as we figure out how can we treat with this issue, what's a solution, and let them take the lead as far as possible and be able to handle their mistakes, because they may not always come up with a great solution. Yeah, but that's the engaging, that's the relationship of trust that we're building, and that's the space we're holding for them at home, so that home is a safe space to grow in.
I'm glad that you shared that. It reminded me that explain, empower,
Explore, and empower.
It reminded me.
That's Dr. Justin Coulson.
Dr. Justin Coulson. It reminded me of, that common sense parenting, explaining, what's happening, explaining, I'm seeing you on your phone for the past hour, for the past 2 days, when you come home from school, explaining what you're seeing and, looking at behaviors and exploring options, what can you do in its place? Maybe you could spend 15 minutes and you're doing revision and so on. And, empowering the child to do what is being suggested or asked. So and these stages may take a while. You may be explaining, looking at behaviors, identifying behaviors for quite a long time. And don't be afraid, become an expert at, I'm seeing you doing this, I'm hearing you cursing, I'm hearing you saying thank you, I'm hearing you doing this. I'm seeing you. This is the fourth time I've seen you do that kind of thing. Don't be afraid to stay, in identifying behaviors for a while and become good at it before you move on to another step, of explore and empower. It takes time. Parenting, while this book is our guide, parenting takes time. We need to be consistent, and it's not about, being a perfect parent. It's about being a praying parent and being a parent who is available for relationship with, to build relationship with our children. Now, let's see, our time has come to an end. And we want to thank all our viewers. Remember, if this program is providing information for you, you're finding it helpful, please provide us with some feedback. We'd really love to hear. And Beyond the Birds and the Bees is available at the Family Life Commission. I'm not sure if you're seeing the book, but this has been our guide. Thank you, Alicia, for journeying with us in Adolescence. Next week, we're going to pick up with tasks 3 and 4 and 5. We're going to continue as we look at adolescence and parenting, health and family life education, the parenting edition. We thank you for viewing and God bless you. Thank you much again, Alicia.
Thank you so much. And parents, just have patience. Breathe. Take care of yourself and have patience with your kids.
Yes, lovely. Thank you. God bless you all.